kíkọ́ láìsí ọkọ́ àti àdá kò ì pẹ́ o, kò ì pẹ́ o. Iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ níṣẹ́ ilẹ̀ wa, ẹni kò ṣiṣẹ́ á máa jalè. Ìwé kíkọ́ láìsí ọkọ́ àti àdá kò ì pẹ́ o, kò ì pẹ́ o. Iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ níṣẹ́ ilẹ̀ wa, ẹni kò ṣiṣẹ́ á máa jalè. Ìṣàpá láìsí iyán àti ẹ̀gúsí kò ì pẹ́ o, kò ì pẹ́ o. Iyán àtẹ̀bà ló ń jẹ ilẹ̀ wa, ẹni kò jẹyán á jẹ̀bà tó tutù. Ìṣàpá láìsí iyán àti ẹ̀gúsí kò ì pẹ́ o, kò ì pẹ́ o. Iyán àtẹ̀bà ló ń jẹ ilẹ̀ wa, ẹni kò jẹyán á jẹ̀bà tó tutù. Ìgbọràn wọn délé ìwé, wọn kò fetí sílẹ̀ sóhun tólùkọ́ kọ́ wọn. Olùkọ́ ní kó kàwé wọn sì máa ṣeré ká, wọn á jẹun 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 wọn gbọ́dọ̀ roboto. Iṣẹ́ iṣẹ́ ìyẹn kì í ṣe tiwọn, eré 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 ṣáni tiwọn. Dòdò àti ráìsì kò gbọ́dọ̀ kọjá, wọn á jẹun 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 wọn gbọ́dọ̀ roboto.
First and foremost, I want to give thanks to God for making this day possible. I cannot be more overjoyed. I see myself there with the dignitaries that are here, and also my thanks goes to the organizing committee headed by Dr. Eso. You have done a wonderful job. Thank you very much. This is well appreciated. To all the other members of the organizing committee, I want to say a big thank you for making this day possible. My thanks also goes to all the farmers that are here today. Without you, we won't be here. The reason why we are here is to be able to serve farmers that are cultivating our mango crops. And for you to be present here today, I want to say thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. There's no time we call you that you don't answer our call. This is well appreciated. It is good for us to interact. We cannot be doing research in isolation. We cannot be saying we want to solve the problem of the farmers when the farmers are not even paid. So it is good for you and for us that you are here today to listen to what we have to say in terms of the the tone of research that we set to solve the problems that are on ground. So we need your contribution. Some of the farmers here today can even know more than us. There are a lot of things they know that we don't know. So for you being there today, it is an opportunity for us to interact and know exactly where we should touch in terms of research on what our mandate crops. I want to thank all the staff of the institute, especially the researchers that are here. This is our day, and it's like a yearly ritual that we normally carry out. It is a time for us to learn from one another. It is a time to learn from our senior colleagues that will be presenting their research proposals in the next few days. It is a time for the young ones that are coming, the very young ones who are just coming to the institute as research scientists, to learn from the senior colleagues how things are being done in terms of research. So thanks to every one of you for coming. I want to say welcome to Cocoa Research Institute of Nigeria, a renewed Cocoa Research Institute of Nigeria. And we look forward to your lectures, and we believe that your presence here will add value to what we are doing today. And we are here today to present to you what we intend to do for the current season. This particular program should have happened some months back, but because of lack of funds, we just postpone it. And when I see that the postponement is becoming uncomfortable to me, I have to think out of the box to make sure that we look for funds that will make the program to happen. But thank God, yes, we were able to make it. And again, thanks to you and your team for the job well done. And if I may also mention, this particular in-house review is a very unique one. Unique in the sense that this will be my last in-house review in the institute. As I will be stepping down very soon to other opportunities. And that is why I consider this as a very unique in-house review. It might not be my last contribution, because even if I step aside, CRIN will always be in my mind.
It is with great honor and immense pride that I give this keynote address before you today. During the CRIN in-house research review meeting under the inspiring theme of advances in varietal development of cocoa, cashew, coffee, cola, and tea for sustainable economic growth in Nigeria. These crops, traditionally seen as the economic commodities, have now emerged as a powerful instrument for socio-economic transformation and environmental sustainability. Grown sustainably, they do not only enhance rural livelihoods and contribute significantly to Nigerian GDP, foreign exchange, but they also regenerate our soil, enhance biodiversity, and build climate resilience. These perennial crops, when integrated into agroforestry systems, improve soil structure, increase organic matter, and offer long-term carbon sequestration potential. I agree that we all are on the same page with this aforesaid statement. Among these crops, cocoa stands out as a cornerstone of our agricultural economy and a symbol of Nigerian agricultural heritage. Cocoa legacy achievements during the Western Region era, the building of the first tallest house in Africa, known as Cocoa House in Ibadan, first radio stations and television stations in Africa, farm estates, free education, etc. were all what our late stage Chief Obafemi Awolowo we all what done to improve these our landscapes and our governance to make sure that the Western state remains a pivotal region in Nigeria. And I think our late stage, even when this is no more, deserves a round of applause for this place. Thank you very much. This shouldn't be forgotten in Nigeria. Nigeria remains one of the top global producers of cocoa, and CRIN strides in varietal development have led to the introduction of early bearing, high-yielding hybrids such as the T series to T series 8, that is 1 to 8 series, yielding up to about 2,300 kilograms per hectare, a major leap from the national average of 500 kilograms per hectare on traditional farms. Some are also some understatements, because you also see some of these averages sometimes it also revolves around 350 to 400 kilograms. The Nigeria agenda to upscale our cocoa production from the present 280,000 to 300,000 metric tons to 500,000 metric tons in the next 2 years must have led President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCON FEC approval for the creation of the National Cocoa Management Board in order to put in place an institution that will regulate, support, develop and promote the Nigerian cocoa industry along sustainable practices without the board being involved in cocoa buying and selling. And I think Mr. President deserves a round of applause from this government. There is no way we can talk about cocoa development, and I agree in several forums. The Honorable Minister of Agriculture and Food Security and the Honorable Minister of Trade and Investment have said it, has also reiterated that several stakeholders in Nigeria that Nigerian first goal is to upscale and increase our production from the present 300,000 metric tons to 500,000 metric tons. It has been our goal, but the question is, how do we achieve it? Even when we continue to say this repeatedly, we have been on the same 280 to 300,000 metric tons. So to achieve this goal, I believe that is more reason Mr. President decided to agree and accede to our request that there should be a board, and that this board will always be a regulatory board that will not be involved in cocoa marketing. That is it, and it is expressively clear.
That keynote address, you have mentioned and touched almost all the areas. I just want to mention a few things about the development of synthetic cocoa. I was sitting down in my house one day and I just saw CNN, and they were advertising the development of synthetic cocoa. And I watched the advert. This is a high-level advertisement on CNN. And I wonder what can cause that kind of action for the developer to start thinking of developing a synthetic chocolate. They're using the tissue culture. They started with the apical meristem of a seedling. they extracted the apical meristem and then they now culture it and develop into callus, and eventually they started extracting the ingredient of chocolate from it, which they want to use. Number one, it will fail. Because let's talk of the ethical reason. Nobody will want to eat synthetic chocolate. Because immediately after the advert, I saw a lot of comments all over. People were saying synthetic chocolate is not natural. If it's not natural, it cannot be. So I don't think we should bother ourselves so much about the synthetic. They're trying, but it will not be acceptable to chocolate eaters. And again, if you look at the cost of producing a synthetic chocolate, you cannot compare it with something that is grown naturally. You have a process and the process is chocolate. So it's to me personally, it's nothing to worry about. I know, this developed countries might want to try a lot of things for research purposes. I don't think when it comes to the commercial extraction of chocolate from that stems, I don't think it's going to happen. So nothing to worry about. Chocolate in Africa is still the best, and I believe for a very, very long time we shall continue to enjoy the cocoa sector in Nigeria and Africa.
This is what we are looking for in this in-house. We call it advances in development. And we cannot do any advances, any development when you don't know the problem on ground. So that's why we are pleased to invite the public as your advocate. And then you have already provoked our thoughts. And what we are bringing out in the next 2 days is going to focus on your resistance and it's going to focus on this climate change issue. So we really appreciate your thought.
Let me go study coffee. Let me specialize in coffee. And I went to do science of coffee in Brazil. I studied anatomy of coffee in Italy. I started processing capping in Ethiopia because I discovered that we will not be able to do what our DG is praying for except we have the knowledge. Turning coffee into wine unless we have the knowledge. Turning coffee into a daily consumable unless we have the knowledge. And there is no way other countries or other people will value what we have except we value it. How many hotels here in or your state are using cashew to welcome their guests? How many hotels? Instead we give them biscuit. Not many in Nigeria. How many occasions do we serve coffee, chocolate, and tea? The answer is a no-no. And that's why today, the privilege given to me as one of the keynote speakers, I want to speak about creation. Somebody say creation. Somebody say creation. After this meeting, I'm very sure you are going to look for a partner. Because if you cannot go into creation alone, look for a partner that has a very strong face. But make sure he's smiling. Tell him I want you to be my partner. Because you might not be able to go into world creation alone. But you have to partner. Tell your neighbor partner. Tell your neighbor partner. So, if anyone is not smiling around, you don't partner with the person. Check your neighbor. Check your neighbor. Because you're about to partner. And ask your neighbor, are you going to be the financier while I bring the knowledge? Or I'm going to bring the finance? You have to know who is the sponsor among the two of you. Thank you. Thank you. So with this appetite, we're able to make our own brand, coffee, chocolate, and tea. Lizzy Global has 8 brands of coffee, chocolate, and tea, designed, formulated by the visionary leader, and is being sold in South Africa as we speak in less than 2 years. This coffee is already sold to 14 African countries. Do you know why Nigerians don't like success? It's lack of exposure. When you are exposed and you discover that the green passport does not give you what you are looking for, then you will cry one day to make this green passport look valuable. And it can't be valuable except you bring value into the country. When you travel around and they say no access except you have a visa, and somebody from Kenya is getting access, then you will know that you have no pride. You can't be better than the leadership of your country. So if you want your country to improve, you can't blame the government. You will be part of the government. You will be part of the government. So I decided to be part of the government through coffee, chocolate, and tea by producing it and selling it to other African countries. You can celebrate that. So I'm challenging all the youths. If you are a youth, say I'm a youth. If you know that you are above 30, you have already spent half time. I want you to pay attention. If you are above 65, let's go down. Are we together? The power of creation. Nigeria will have everything it takes to create. And when I discovered that Nigerians are not good with coffee, chocolate, and tea as a habit, I decided to infuse what we call Ganoderma lucidum into the coffee. So whether you like coffee or not, what you are going to look for inside the coffee is the health. We categorize the coffee into 8 different categories. For people who are diabetic, they have the Ganoderma lucidum with the black coffee. For people who have hepatitis, they have Ganoderma lucidum in the green tea. For people who easily forget here? You put your money inside purse, say you took it to the bank. You see this cocoa? The DJ was talking. I was so excited. You see this cocoa? It's just a matter of people coming together to produce more than 100 beverages from this cocoa. Nobody wants to create, everybody wants to consume. In a country of over 200 million people, I said I'm not going to expose this education. I will keep making the money alone. Yes, they are after oil now. They don't want to make use of cocoa. They are after oil. See cocoa that you can get a shop, make ice cocoa, make strawberry cocoa, make cinnamon cocoa. Invite people with some lobster. Come and take some cocoa, and you are busy chasing job.
We have opened up our minds into the business aspect of some of our managers. And you have marshaled point, you have gingered youth, you have called them to start looking towards how to be a creator. And the jobs are not there like it used to be. So it's good for us to now think and be more innovative and find a way of establishing small businesses for ourselves in terms of all these our mandate growth. Thank you very much for that stimulating lecture. Your business is growing, and that you want to be a friend of CRIN. Because there are still a lot of things we can do together in so many areas of this mandate. So So we will continue to keep in touch with you, and I hope that the relationship between your research and your company or your business will continue to blossom. Thank you very much for that stimulating lecture.
Most of us know about cashew. It's a crop that is grown in many states, about 20 states in Nigeria. And it's a crop of margin to the farmers, at least in recent years. And a lot of people, millions of people can be involved along the value chain. So it's a crop not only of high margin but also for various and very easy economic activities that generates a lot of employment to Nigerians. And like I told us, bonus by smallholder farmers in many states, about 20 states, out of the 36 states grow cashew. Though it's very popular, maybe about 4 or 5 states. Generally, a lot of states, 20 states, you can see some cashews there. And the South African is here the second largest producer of cashew after Cote d'Ivoire. Statistics are very, very difficult to come by in Nigeria because of our control policies, but it is estimated about 350,000 metric tons are produced at the moment. Out of the quantity that is produced, just about 18% of it is processed locally. We're talking about the overview of processing. So just about 18% is processed locally. The rest is exported as raw cashew nuts, mainly to India and Vietnam. So our processing capacity is very low. And it basically due to inadvertent policy framework for cashew processors. Cashew is a very high investment, cashew processing is a very high investment business, and for you to compete, the investment is quite high. And so framework is a policy that regulates all the stakeholders. It is not something you can always just do. Going into $10 million of investment in the cashew processing industry, ranging from this area in the north to the southwest, to medium size landscape, total about $100 million that is invested by processors in terms of machinery and building. So you can see it's quite capital intensive. Like I said, less than 20% out of a million 3 tons of produce in Africa generally is processed in the continent. So it's not just Nigeria that has low processing capacity. Even other countries, Nigeria and in Africa, just coming up. Some are moving very fast. You might see the average, the percentage processing might be low, but it's mainly because of the huge volumes they are producing. Like you can see the percentage in Cote d'Ivoire, for instance, might not be as much as you expect despite the machineries and equipment investment there. But it's because they produce quite a lot of raw cashew nuts, over 1 million tons right now. About 60% of the factories in Nigeria as of today are shut down. We're talking about overview of processing in Nigeria, so we have to bring out these silent points. Actually, as of today, we will say that about 80% are shut down. And even the 20 or 30% that processing, maybe 1 or 2 that are processing at 50% capacity. That is the situation today.
it's mainly due to the lack of policy that is necessary for large-scale cashew processing. I say large-scale cashew processing. If you're just cracking the shell in your house and taking it to the shops and maybe eating your family, of course you don't need a policy for that. But if you have to process in large quantity, maybe 10 to 100 tons per day, and then you are targeting the export market, where you go to meet with the giants like Vietnam and India, and then Cote d'Ivoire, you definitely need a policy that will guide and regulate the players. When I'm talking about players, I'm talking about producers, and then processors, and then traders of raw consumers. There must be a policy framework that regulates these players and then incentivize.
I'm very happy to be associated with the executive director, who is my teacher and mentor. Yes, I said so not because I'm trying to flatter him. As a professor, I was professor 2008, not looking young. And as a former student of those that form Cocoa Research Institute, Professor Bengo Muelanko, so that you know where I'm coming from. I was talking, somebody was saying, he knows in and out, I smiled. Just as I knew Nigerian stock product, I can count more on Cocoa Research for you, and lastly, NIHOT. Some of us are distant students of, for me, foremost researchers from Nigerian institutes. And we have confidence that we have the best group of scientists in our national institutes. And he has just displayed it. He has shown it to the world that you are best. Because at least 70% of his time, most of you are the one running the institute on his behalf. Yes or no? Yeah, right. Are you not the best? That clapping is too weak. You do not have confidence. Since when I became executive director of Nigerian Stock Product Research, 17th April 2023, I must tell you, everything you'll be hearing from NISPRI, the social media, everything has been done by my colleagues in NISPRI. I did not bring anybody from outside to NISPRI except me. And 85% of what they are doing, they are the one doing it. In fact, initial discussion, brainstorming, and efforts, all other things that you have been reading about NISPRI has been done by my directors, head of departments, and staff themselves. Globally today, we are competitive. Have we not proven it that you are the best resource pool of the Nigerian populace?
Our journey, the journey of Taraba State University and Cocoa Research Institute started last year, 2023, and blossomed just within 1 year to where we are now. Because I found that he was such a person that is forward-looking, proactive, and dynamic. And somehow, I have the same characteristics, so have both said. So it was easy to relate with him, and therefore the institute. I have known Cocoa Research Institute for a very long time, since I was a student in Ahmadu Bello University. That time it was easy for students to go on excursions across the country without fear. Yes. You know, I also know Forestry Research Institute, I know IITs, because we were moving freely at that time in the early days. Of course, you cannot really say that now, for two reasons. Insecurity and money. But like Blessing has said, just, you know, I must appreciate the motivation I got from our motivational speaking. I was wondering, okay, either she's a trained motivational speaker or she's a pastor, she runs a church, which is almost the same thing. Because you go to the church and then you come out and you are feeling like a new person. You'll change your orientation. Like she said, it is possible for us to go back to those days if we look inwards and are proactive and creative in what we do. We have everything that we need.
This is not an Ibadan affair. This is an event of national importance. Like I'm being there confidently to assure you that this will go on the NTA network. It is not a matter that should rest in Idianyure. It's not a matter that should rest in Idianyure or only in Ibadan environment. It generates a lot of discourse, and I think it goes beyond what we had initially planned for. I assure you, sir, your resilience, you see, it is even important for me to mention to you, one ton of cocoa before now is 1.8 billion naira. But I can tell you that today it is 11.2 billion naira. People don't like to be a cocoa farmer. I was quietly discussing with a comrade Adibuke. If I plant cocoa today, how long will it take? Thank you so much. Thank you for that.
Message to you by my honorable commissioner, it is making the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security session I should lead everyone of you. What we are doing, I think research review as regard CRIN is an annual event that I can observe, and being the center of creation, as rightly said by one of the persons that has delivered the keynote address, it is good that we come together like this annually to know the status of our research in various blocks of importance to our economy in Nigeria, so that any research, any innovation that's being done will not go in silo. We'll be able to make use of it in our various states and communities, so that to improve on our productivity in those commodities.
It recognizes the importance of CRIN, most activity of Nigeria. Firstly, that we partner and want to participate this is the area where states have
The yearly in-house review is like a day or days that are set aside to tell our stakeholders, our major stakeholders, which are mainly the farmers, to tell them this is the direction of our research. And you cannot do research in isolation. You have to bring in farmers, so that the farmers will be able to tell you where the shoe pinches most, and that will shape the direction of our research. So it is very important to call our stakeholders everywhere, showcase to them what type of research we want to carry out, so that they can also have their own contribution and give us a direction in terms of where our research should focus on. That is why we are doing it. We are very privileged to be saddled with the responsibility of research and development on with these 5 mandate crops: cocoa, cashew, cola, coffee, and tea. These are economic crops that can transform the Nigerian economy. And we all know what is happening in the world. Everybody is shying away from oil, and the only alternative is to go back to the land. And dealing with plantation crop, like the one we are dealing with here, can bring a lot of economic benefits. One, it can bring the much needed foreign exchange to the country. Most of these crops are crops that export their produce, so they can bring the much needed economic relief in terms of foreign exchange to the country. Secondly, these crops, their produce can empower our farmers. When they make money, you can see, for example, you can see what happened between last year January and this year. Last year January 2024, a ton of cocoa was 1.8 million naira. But today, it's about 11 million, 12 million naira. You can see the change in terms of the amount of money that farmers are getting. So it can really uplift the farmers and transform their way of life. So yes, the 5 economic crops are capable of transforming the economy of Nigeria, and diversifying it away from the concentration of oil money every time.
The CRIN review is indeed the first one I'm attending since we started collaboration. I attend one of 2024. And I think it's well organized. I've seen the programs, I've seen how the opening ceremony has gone, areas where you can have pitches that might disrupt my education. I think staff have done a good job. I mentioned during my message, you know, in the past, when we were younger, we were not talking about oil. Cocoa was one of the agricultural crops that were cash spinners. That was how Nigeria was built, with produce from the natural resources that we use across the country. But somehow, along the line, emphasis went to some other sectors, and that's why the agricultural production declined, because we were not paying attention to agricultural produce, particularly those with export communities. We used to call them primaries. We used to learn about food crops and cash crops, and cocoa was one of them. I think it was the oil thing that came and shifted everybody's attention. So I was busy tonight.
I am super excited this afternoon to talk about coffee, because anytime I talk about coffee, I don't just talk about consumption, but I talk about the improvement of how this can bring about job opportunities, skill development, and community development in terms of Nigeria, and identifying what we farm and how we farm it. The potentials of coffee is very, very high. Looking at the value chain of coffee, I started looking at what coffee can do to human. That's number one in terms of consumption. Let's look at how oil is being processed out of coffee. After studying coffee and science in Italy, I discovered that oil can be out of coffee. Sugar can be out of coffee. There is no wastage in the value, economical value of coffee. Now, looking at this opportunity is going to create a lot of job opportunities for the youth and for the women in terms of the production. In production process, we discover that the women participate. Women from the age of 65 and above participate in the area of picking and picking. So the job opportunity is beyond just the youth, and the youth participate in the area of marketing, learning how to sell coffee, learning how to prepare coffee, healthy coffee around for people to actually consume and promote our heritage, which is coffee, chocolate, and tea. And I'm super excited to know that a lot of people are getting awareness about coffee.
We've said it before, this is just an opportunity, and we have this every year. We are exposed to new latest researches on all three crops, including my coffee. through CRIN here. So we are happy to be here so as to exchange ideas. And of course, we in Lakota are mostly for production. We are into production and probably one or two processes. In fact, what we are trying to do is to produce, process, and we are going to have coffee cafes all over the country. That is what we are doing with our CRIN now. The value chain in especially cash crops is enormous. And you've heard of a lady who is started with probably 35, like she said, 35K, and she's to billions now. This is an opportunity for people to, take and ensure. We only not only produce for the local consumption. Of course, we don't drink much of my own coffee in the country, but for export, where we earn the much needed foreign exchange. And this is why we want people to come into not only product, but even processing. We will produce the process and we send abroad. Or even we have coffee cafes like we do abroad. So that's what we are preaching.
We are primarily a research institute. And what we do is not only carrying out research on our mandate crops in terms of making sure that we come out with the best planting materials for those 5 varieties or 5 crops that we are dealing with. We also have a section, a department that we call Value Addition or End Use Research Department. And this department carry out research on how to add value to these 5 economic crops. We have done that research for the past few years, and we have come out with more than 26 products that are capable of being coming out from our 5 mandate crops. We have produced a lot of produce like wine, cocoa wine, cola wine, cashew wine, produce liquid soap, produce balm, we produce a lot. We have cocoa bread, we have a lot of products that are coming out. These are simple innovations and technology that have come out of our research, which the will-be entrepreneur can easily take advantage of and blow it into a kind of a commercial venture. So we are looking forward to entrepreneurs to come to visit us, look at all the technologies we have developed on the shelf, and try to see which one they can adopt and make it big in terms of commercializing it. So yes, the end use research is very important. For example, if we are producing mainly, I will start with cocoa. We are producing cocoa, raw cocoa that we are exporting to the outside world. When you develop and you process, you add value to your cocoa and you process it into a cocoa liquid. If the cocoa is $1, if you process it into a liquid, it becomes $5. If you now further process the liquor into chocolate, it becomes $15. You can see the multiplier effect of adding value, and that is the reason why we have the end-use research to not only export this raw cocoa or raw produce, cashew and some other produce directly, also try to process and add value to it so that we can take more advantage and earn more money when we export. So that is the importance of our value research department.
Intensifying not only cocoa, but we heard about cashew and its potentials. How tea produce one of the best teas in the world, not in Africa, in the world. So these are things that can be serious foreign exchange earners. We need to go back. We need to go back and intensify and improve on the capacity to produce and export these commodities.
Your advice to Nigerian farmers?
Nigerian farmers should be very hopeful that with the current policies being put in place by the recent governments, I think that there is hope. Farmers will smile again. Cocoa is one of the very, very seriously sought after commodities as a cash crop.
My advice to Nigerian youth is to look at where Nigeria used to be 50 years ago. Just think about it in case you don't know. Where is Nigeria 50 years ago? Our leaders are trying to make it right. Can we put our hands together and do all we can and bring out the creativity in us to create more in every single creation that we have here in Nigeria?
My advice is that everybody should go into agriculture. People don't know what they are missing. You can produce for you and your family, produce to sell, produce to even export. In fact, that's the only industry in the world that pays, though it's sometimes laborious, risky, but then it's the best industry you can engage in the world.
Nigeria is capable of catching up with those that are in front of us now. We have been there before. Nigeria ranks as number 2, if not number 1, in the past. But due to the fact that we concentrate too much on oil and we didn't develop our agro sector, that is why you see, and possibly because of the declining prices of cocoa, that is why you see people are now declining. But now the interests have picked up. And from last year to this year, because of the increase in price of cocoa and some of all these produce, we have had a lot of requests for planting material, which means farmers are now planting more of these crops. And you know, if you look at the farms generally, the cocoa farms in Nigeria generally, they're about 50 years old or more. And of course, we are 50 years old, the productivity is declining. And that is why we are not keeping. But now, interest have picked up. People are rehabilitating the old cocoa plantation. People are planting new plantation. In fact, we even encourage rehabilitation rather than planting new, opening up new areas and planting. So we have a lot of surge in demand in terms of requests for planting materials, and we are trying our best to fulfill this one. So I see in the nearest future, in the next 2-3 years, I believe that the production will increase and we're going to catch up with some of the countries that are ahead of us in terms of cocoa production.
Ìwé kíkọ́ láìsí ọkọ́ àti àdá.